Hey out there Akronites, welcome once again to Around Akron with Blue Green. Now this is another socially distant episode, but it's a beautiful episode. I meet up with Gyasi Jones and we talk all about his hyper-realistic artwork. I catch up with a muralist and a multimedia artist, Nicole Epps. I meet up with Jaron M. LeGrair and he has the voice of an angel. Now to kick this show off, I'm going to meet up with a curator, an artist, a creator. She just does a little bit of everything, and she does it creatively and well. Let's go meet up with Anika Ame and see what she's all about.
I have always loved to mix my own colors and then play with different materials and see, like, what would happen if I just spike this cardboard across here? What if I use this fork, Sometimes I'll just splatter paint and then I'll let it dry a little bit, because once the acrylic dries a little bit and then you kind of smear it, it makes this whole other effect. It's amazing. So I just love blended colors. I always find myself really attracted to artwork that just looks like a color, a mess of colors, just like splatters and drips, and those really speak to me. And I love when there's like, I don't know, someone told me that I have a lack of inhibition in my work, and I like that. I also do the collage work on sometimes canvas and sometimes the board. It just all depends on my mood and like what size I'm going for. So as far as the collage pieces, I collect so many photos. I collect, like, if I see, sometimes you'll see flyers, like postcard flyers, and there'll be a beautiful image or like just a texture on there that's so pretty, and it's like, oh, this event's gonna be over, and then all these are just gonna get thrown out, and I'll just cut like the little square of like that tree I saw, or just the texture. It might be something like this, that just stands out, and I'll just cut a little piece and I'll just put it to the side in an envelope. And so I have so many of these envelopes of just scraps, and it's crazy. Like, if you just look anywhere around my space, there's just all these words cut out. I cut out words, photos, beautiful faces, just everything. I love texture so much. So a lot of the stuff in my collage work is like magazine cutting, clipping, sometimes old photos. A lot of times I'll photograph things that I see in nature. I might love the way this tree trunk looks. I might love the texture of some bark. I'm obsessed with moss, so I'm always photographing moss. So a lot of times it's my own photos in the collage pieces as well. It's just a mixture of all kinds of stuff. I like to hide words that relate to the theme of my pieces in there. And there's always just a whole lot of my thoughts, like things that I feel like I can't articulate with words or in the collage work. I think that's when I really am like, I feel like if I'm painting, I love flowers, I love nature, but if I really have something that I just can't get out in words, it's like it goes into my collage work. Last year or the year before, I learned how to build my own frames, which really just made me all proud. I'm so excited about it. So now I buy plywood and I buy the side pieces. I don't know what sizes they are. I just go in there and just kind of piece things together. But I also go to mom and pop hardware stores first to try to find my wood, even if it's scraps, and try to put them together. And if I can't find what I need, then I'll go to the big box stores. But I really try my best to keep it local as much as I can. I'm also a dumpster diver, so if I see dumpsters with those construction dumpsters where they're just throwing things out or whatever, I will grab some wood. I will grab some cinder blocks. Like, they're just throwing away really valuable stuff. So I definitely find a lot of stuff, and then I'll just kind of pile it. And then when I have a project I'm working on, I can go to my little surplus first to see if I have what I need. So I've been doing a lot of the plywood board pieces lately. It started off with me just getting ready for the mustard seed show, and I made 2 4-foot by 4-foot pieces for that with lotus flowers on them. We decided that we were going to really put focus on women of color. And so let's see, it took us about a year to plan this show out. We called it Emerge, and it was actually a year ago. It was in May of last year. So it was like May 24th or something like that. It was at the Mustard Seed in Montrose, and it was a really beautiful experience. The whole thing, from just sitting down with Jessica and coming up with the content for, like, you know, how we would put this show out there. Like, what exactly are we trying to, what are our intentions, you know? It's not just like, oh, we just want an art show. No, we want to really, like, put a spotlight on women who are amazing artists but are not getting the platform that other amazing artists may get, you know? It's very, very important. And so we just put a whole lot of care into this project. We met a lot and, like, really broke down every word we were using when we would put our, you know, call for artists out there. And we're just so intentional. I love the whole process was just amazing. And then we had 17 women of color, myself included, as the artist. And when we all got together, it was just a beautiful thing. When we first met, we met one time before we actually installed, you know. We got to look at the space and decide, like, you know, just to get an idea of how much space we were working with. We left the theme pretty open, you know. We want artists to be able to just express themselves, put out their best work. The actual opening night was amazing. It was well attended. It was beautiful. We had a band. We had some good food. It was just like, it was just the most amazing experience. It made me, like, excited that I'm curating again. Mm-hmm. And we have a plan to do Men of Color next. Actually, COVID has pushed some plans back, but we're gonna get it figured out.
Next up, we're going to meet up with Gyasi Jones. Now, his artwork is super hyper-realistic, but yet it has his own flair and style. What caught me is his use of lights and dark. You got to check this guy's artwork out. Let's go see what Gyasi Jones is all about.
Like, my senior year, the only class I took was art. I kind of had enough credits to where, like, I didn't have to take any major classes my last year. So pretty much all I did was do art till about noon and went to work. So for, like, my whole senior year, that's pretty much all I did. They called it independent study at the time, but pretty much all I did was draw the whole year. Pretty much, that's all it. So it was, and I was, like, the only one in the room, so it would just be me and my art teacher. Her name was Mrs. Baylor. I'm not sure if she's still around teaching anywhere at all, but I know she taught me a lot of things. One thing that always stuck with me, and I did not pay attention to her while I was in high school, she always said, don't be afraid of using black or going too dark. When I was in school, I never paid attention to her until I started doing more realism and realizing that you have to do contrast. So that one, out of all the things that we ever talked about, that was one thing, like, that always stuck with me to this day. Yeah, I just work, I'll find an image that I like, and sometimes I might just be thinking about something, like, hey, I want to do something like a Tupac, I want to do something like Andre 3000, and I'll just start looking through different photos and see what medium I want to use. I want to use pastels, and I'm kind of thinking, like, this image would really pop if I just use pastels for this, particular picture. One thing I don't do is, and a lot of artists, especially who work in realism, they use grid method. I have no idea how to use a grid method. Like, I've tried it. I don't like it at all. It's too machine-like for me, but it is effective. I mean, I don't begrudge any of the people who do it, because it still takes a lot of shading and, you know, a lot of rendering to get things just right. But for me, I still like to have a little bit of my style in the art. So with that, I try to be as accurate as possible, but then at the same time, there's a little bit left in there where you can still see my style in there somewhere. So that way, when you see a piece, even though you can recognize who it is, you can tell it was drawn by me. That's the goal. I don't know if that's always the case, because I'm only looking at it through my eyes, but hopefully when other people see it, they can look at it and like, oh, okay, that looks like something he did. It's actually different shades of black you gotta use. That's another thing that's in my, so even though some things are dark, a lot of times you can go even darker and you can still see the form even through another dark area. And then going through the light, with that one, I had a lot of texture I had to add to that one. So it's just like a lot of layering. You know, you start with the light lines and then you go darker to dark. And then on the light side, you don't want to go too dark because then you get kind of muddied up. And you still need that contrast there. So that one was definitely a challenging one. It took me a long time. A lot of stuff I can kind of breeze through in about a week. That took me close to 3 weeks. Like for whatever reason, I just could not get through that. It was taking so long. Pastels, I use on the Andre 3000 piece, I used pastel sticks for the first layer. I use a pastel matte paper, which is kind of rough. A lot of artists don't like using it for some reason because it does eat up the pencils pretty quickly. But what I do is I layer it down with the pastel stick first. Like I think with Andre 3000, I use like a lighter, almost tan shade for the base layer. Smooth it out, and then I just start layering the pencils right on top of it. With that particular paper, the colors just pop easy. Once you get like the first couple layers down, you can just, it's like smooth sailing from there. That's the hardest part, is just getting the first couple layers down, make sure everything is smooth. You know, with pastels, a lot of times it can be kind of messy and they don't blend correctly. That's why I only use the sticks for the first layer of pencils. That's when you can like kind of add in the detail. And you can just layer on top of each other. Unlike colored pencils, a lot of times we have to use different colors to blend. You don't really have to do that with pastels. You can just lay it right on top. Lay another one right, just use your finger and just blend it together. It's so very easy. That one only took me about 20 hours. I know that sounds like a lot, but that's kind of on the low side, especially for a more detailed portrait. But it was just so easy just to start, layering the colors on it. Draw every day. Draw every day. And not just from your head, because I think I would even be further as an artist, draw from life. Had I had done that earlier on, like just even as a kid, just draw from everywhere. When I first started doing portraits, just doing like comic work, things like that, it's always been black and white, graphite. One thing my dad always told me before he had passed was like, you need to start doing color. You got to start doing color. And I always resisted for a long time. So even when I do like my color portraits, I always hear his voice as well. It's like, gotta do color. Like I'm trying to even steer away from doing, even though black and white is kind of like my calling card most times, I try to steer away from it just for, growth purposes. Like, don't get too comfortable. One thing I want to start doing, I've done a few more painting, things like that. I've done a few here and there, but I want to do that more as the year goes on. Digital art. So I just want to get my hands on, I just want to do everything.
Next up, we're going to meet with Nicole Epps to talk about her mural work, her painting work, and what caught me was her use of color along with blacks and whites. It just pops so much and it has a statement. Let's go see what Nicole Epps is all about.
Since I could hold a pen, literally since I could hold a pencil, and my favorite thing to do was Sunday comics. I would wait for my parents. I can remember being around 3 years old and waiting for my mom and dad to finish with the comics, and I would then take the comics and I would copy each individual comic. And it's just, no tracing, but just looking. And the weird thing was that my parents noticed right on, I never looked at the paper. I would stare at the piece, but could draw without looking at the paper, and it would look identical to what was on the paper. And then I remember also realizing that it was an outlet for me the first time, being upset and knowing that I couldn't say what I wanted to say to my mom or dad, but I was able to draw that feeling. And because it was so personal to me, nobody could tell me what it was, and it felt so good after it was done. So I knew from a young age that art gave me the ability to communicate things how I wanted to, and nobody really got to tell me yay or nay or that I couldn't, you know? Either be all ink pen, and no, I don't use pencil because when I say I freehand, it's literally pen to paper. I don't know, I don't sketch. Even when I paint, I don't sketch. It's literally paint to canvas. I truly don't know what a piece is going to look like from beginning to end. It's a feeling. I create because words fail. It's something inside that needs to get out. And I think when I look at the black and white and how I use color to bring it in, I really think with that, my use of the black and white kind of represents how I view the world when I really think about it. So many people want to box us into these two things. This black and white has caused so much problem, so much. But then the beauty around us, all the chaos of the colors around. It's like if we could take time to focus on the chaos of the beauty around us instead of these two, black and white just bow right in your face. How much cooler would the world be? Like, look at the beauty when we get outside of our own constraints. I'm just hoping that other sectors that are not in the creative field start realizing that artists and creatives need to be brought into conversations from the beginning, because we have visions and we view the world in creative and unique ways, including people like yourself that are storytellers, where we can, when it comes to establishing programming and putting money into parks and things of that nature, include artists in those conversations, period, from the beginning. Because we're the ones that have the ear of the community. We're the ones out there that know what the people want, and we have their best interest at heart. And we need to be a part of those to create unique and interesting spaces that make the community want to come together and gather. I am an avid vinyl collector. I don't own any music on anything other than vinyl records and 8-tracks. Literally, I have never downloaded a song. I don't have any CDs. I am truly a vinyl head. And one of the things that drew me to vinyl records as a young kid was the artwork. I loved the artwork on the covers. I would sit and it took me on a journey. I felt like I was experiencing that album being created because musicians, I'm inspired. I create to music. I listen to music. And people, because they knew I collected albums, would just give me albums. And so I had a lot of albums that I was never going to use. And I said, I'm going to start recreating some of my favorite album covers directly on these old albums. And I initially just created some pieces for myself and just shared them on social media. And before I knew it, people were asking, hey, well, could you make this one? And could you make me that one? And I'm like, sure, I can do it. First and foremost, it is not a hobby. Secondly, don't ever let anyone define success with money. If art is your passion and that makes you happy, you are wealthy. You seek out a career path that allows you to exercise your passion every day. Your wealth is going to come in your happiness, not the amount of money that you're getting in a paycheck. And those closed-minded individuals that will tell you that art is not a viable career, it's because they cannot think past dollar signs. Even though you can be very financially stable as an artist, because it just takes on so many avenues and paths. People can't think outside that small box of, oh, you drew a picture. It's like, no, art encompasses so much more than that. But that's kind of like my style, and that's another reason why I tell people I'm more of an emotional artist. I create from a space of raw emotion because I don't know what the piece is going to look like until it's done. I let it tell me what it's supposed to be as I'm creating it. I don't like to think too hard. I like to feel. I don't like to think I want to fail. And so far, it hasn't failed me yet.
Now, to wrap this show up today, we're going to meet with the voice of an angel, Jaron M. LeGrair, and he can teach you to sing that way too, or just project your voice. You got to hear it to believe it. Let's go see what Jaron M. LeGrair is all about.
I think I was 3 years old, and it was a song called Give Things, written by Don Moen. That was my first solo at my old church, Phillips Chapel, on the east side of Akron. I think that moment, it was like 3 or 4 years old, but I remember singing, and I remember the reaction and thinking, whoa. I remember saying whoa, like in my brain, however I said it. I was like, this could be something. And that was kind of it. So after that, it's kind of just, I just kept doing it. People kept asking me, so I just kept doing it.
Climb every mountain, search high.
I don't know anything besides singing for most of my life. So like, I feel like it was just, I never had to have the feeling. It was just something I've always done. My family sing, my brothers sing, my mother and father sing, their siblings respectively sing, grandparents sang. So we were just some singing folk, you know what I'm saying? So like, it was just always an innate thing. Like as far as I remember, my brothers and I were doing harmony in our childhood home. My parents would let us do harmony and making up harmony and having us sing.
Every day of your life, for as long as you live.
I'm on the second floor of Seminar Space. And what I offer basically is training for any occupational voice user and singer. So of course, singing is my vocation, my background, is where I grew up, what I do the most. But what I realized in my studies during grad school is that speakers are just as active as singers, in terms of how they use their voices, how long, how much. And I think a lot of people don't understand or aren't aware or just don't think about it in that way. Like, oh, if I'm a teacher, if I'm an actor, if I'm, corporate executive, if I'm having meetings all day, if I'm, whatever, poet, I've had those types of clients. I've had nonprofit, leaders in my studio. I've had all this, I actually had an athlete in my studio one time. That was the most unique lesson or sessions I've ever had. It was so fun though. She wanted to learn how to use her voice on the field because she said she always lose her voice, so she caught out because she was a goalie for soccer, so she would always lose her voice during games. And so we worked on basically yelling properly for 30 minutes, like 3-4 times. It was so fun. We yelled for 30, I loved that. That was so fun to me. So I have all occupational voice users, but of course I have a special place in my heart for, gospel singers, preachers, people like that, because that's where I grew up.
Welcome to the Jaron M. LeGrair Studio YouTube channel, where we encourage boldness, creativity, and awareness of the voice. There are some people who consider belting a bad thing.
I did not want to do YouTube, but people kept saying, you just get on there. Like, you have such a cool presence. I'm like, so I kind of tried it out. At first, I had to get my land legs. It was so mechanical at first when I did it. It's very, not authentic. But one of my friends, Jessica of J Bridges Designs, she was like, you need to just be yourself. Stop trying to be, cookie cutter. Just be yourself. So as I started being myself, the followers and subscribers just started climbing on. And so, now I feel like I found a good stride that works, and they know what to expect. I have it down to a science now. So yeah, now about half of my clients are from YouTube now. I mean, I've since been on YouTube, I've been bi-coastal, and that was always a goal of mine. But, now I have somebody from Rhode Island, and, I've had somebody from California, so literally 2 different coasts of the country I have now touched, being in Akron, Ohio. And people are like, how are you doing? I was like, I just YouTube and just tell people I book lessons while on the video. So if you want to book a lesson with me, just come online. And people, just YouTube. But I knew I also wanted to be in academia, a voice professor, some kind of way. And so what happened was I actually graduated from Ohio State with my master's. Came back, I taught full-time at a high school for academic year. And then I actually tried for my doctorate, and I got it from my doctorate program at Shenandoah University. But unfortunately, due to funding and stuff on my end, I couldn't make it happen. So I decided not to go. But then 5 days later, I got a call from a professor at Point Park who knew me. She's like, hey, looking for a job? I'm like, I guess. and she was like, want to, interview at Point Park. And I said, what is that, a high school? I had no idea it was a college, no idea. And she's like, no, it's a university. I said, oh. So I went like 2 days after that call, blindly, didn't know a soul on this campus except the lady I knew. And then I got done the interview. 40 minutes later, I was driving home because it's in Pittsburgh, let me say that. So it's 2 hours away. So I was on a turnpike driving home, just hoping I got the job. Got the call half hour into my way home. You start Monday, and the rest is history. So now I teach at Point Park. I'm starting my 6th academic year this fall. And then I'll be starting my 2nd academic year at Youngstown State University as well, teaching voice. So I am so glad to be in a place where I can be that teacher for my students, so they can say, I had a black, teacher who I saw every week, who was close to me, and that kind of stuff. I just never had that. I didn't know I necessarily needed it until hindsight, when I thought about my experiences. I'm like, dang, I really could have, used somebody who looked like me to help teach me. It's not just a point of voice, it's a point of familiarity, it's a point of relatability, it's a point of guidance. I've walked the walk that a lot of my black students have been walking or are walking. I done did it. Like, I've made the other side, so this is a representation of what can happen if you press through, if you go on, so I like to be that voice and that look and that image of hope for them, saying, okay, Jaron did it, or Mr. Jaron, whatever you want to call it, he did it, then I can, definitely do it too.
Now, thank you once again for checking out this episode of Around Akron with Blue Green. Thank you, and have an amazing day.